Reading is an immersive pastime where you lose yourself in pages of text, surrounding yourself with lush descriptions, strong characters, and captivating plot lines. Nobel laureate Kazuo Ishiguro once said, "Stories are about one person saying to another, 'This is the way it feels to me.' Can you understand? Does it also feel this way to you?" Reading is about taking the time to connect yourself to others, experiencing their emotions and ways of thinking. But now, in a world where we have so many other options and ways to spend our time, it's much easier to get lost in the endless cycle of scrolling, watching, and arguing. And truly, I don't even remember the last time I stepped into a library. So, do people even read nowadays? Let's answer that question and talk a little bit about literacy, reading, and how we live in an era full of distractions. So, do people still read? The answer is absolutely. In 2022, Americans were asked how many books they read in the past year, and the results were astonishing. Because on average, Americans said that they read 12.6 books in the past year, which is a number that really exceeded my expectations. With all our potential distractions, I truly thought the number would be much lower, in the single digits even. Admittedly, the survey question was pretty open ended. Gallup specified that interviewers are to include all forms of books, including printed books, but also electronic books and audiobooks. Plus, the question asks, how many books did you read, either all the way through or partially? So they're casting a pretty wide net here. There's no emphasis on if the survey respondent ever finished the book, if they read for fun, if they were forced to read some manual at work, if they were assigned some chapter in an awful textbook in school, and third, with all things average, the high end of the spectrum is dragging up the number. In the survey, 27% of the respondents read 11 or more books, 15% read 6 to 10 books, and 40% read 1 to 5 books. It's evident that the people who like reading books are reading a lot of them. But here's the kicker. 12.6 books a year is actually the lowest number Gallup has ever measured going back to the 1990s. In 1990, people read on average 15.3 books a year, 18 and a half in 1999, and the average had been floating around 14 to 15 books a year until very recently when it dipped to 12.6. So yes, Americans do read, but there has been a slight decline. So what's up with that? Well, Gallup mentions that this dip is caused by how many books readers are reading, as opposed to fewer Americans reading any books. In other words, the same amount of people are reading, but just not as much as before. Aside from Gallup, multiple surveys have shown a small but existing decline in reading. The National Education Association, which is an organization that represents millions of public school teachers, faculty, and staff at colleges and universities, also conducted a survey in July of 2022. They found that only 48.5% of adults read one or more books for pleasure, which is down 4% compared to 2017. In addition, the percentage of readers who read a novel or a short story fell to 37.6%, which is also down 4% compared to 2017. This percentage is also the lowest ever recorded since the surveys began in 1992. Sunil Iyengar, the NEA's Director of Research and Analysis, stated, quote, "The persistent decline of fiction reading is worrisome because we know how much reading builds imagination, empathy, close attention, and tolerance of ambiguity." The Bureau of Labor Statistics also backs up the small yet existing decline in reading. For men, the average time spent reading every day for personal interest has gone down from 19 minutes in 2003 to 12 minutes in 2023. For women, we see this decline as well. The average time spent has now dropped from 25 minutes in 2003 to 19 minutes in 2023. Overall, the survey has seen a slow but persistent drop in reading for both men and women across the last 2 decades. Okay, so if the numbers are going down a little bit, how are book publishers doing? They have to be doing poorly, right? Actually, things look pretty stable for the book industry. The estimated net revenue of the publishing industry in the United States from 2008 to 2022 has hovered around 26 to 28 billion dollars per year. Book sales have actually been increasing for the past couple of years. In fact, in 2023, over 760 million physical books were sold. Barnes & Noble experienced a bookstore renaissance in 2024. Foot traffic is up 7% since 2019, and over 60 new locations are opening up this year. But buying books and reading books are two different things. Funnily enough, there's a Japanese word, sundoku, which describes a habit of buying books and not reading them. It's made up of the words sumu, to pile up, and doku, to read. It's something I'm sure many of us are guilty of. I know I am. Sorry to my dusty copy of Pride and Prejudice. I'll get to you one day. Whenever we talk about book reading, we have to talk about social media. And there's a vast trove of evidence showing ties between the two. According to the American Physiological Association, less than 20% of US teens report reading a book, magazine, or newspaper daily for pleasure, while more than 80% say that they use social media every single day. This shift is also evident in younger kids. A Pew Research Center survey showed that 9 and 13-year-olds are reading for fun less often than they used to. In fact, more teenagers now than ever before have said that they have never or hardly ever read for fun in the history of this survey, which dates back to 1984. And the percentage of those who are reading every day has also been dipping. Teachers are seeing the impact of this phenomenon in classrooms. 53% of teachers said that in grades 3 through 8, students' reading stamina has declined by a lot since 2019. 30% claim that their reading stamina has declined by little, and only 8% say that there's no change. Even college professors are not immune to this shift. Nicholas Dame is a humanities professor at Columbia University who has been teaching since 1998, and he claims that students are shocked that they have to finish multiple books in one semester. And his colleagues have also noticed that many students no longer arrive at college, even highly selective elite colleges like Columbia prepare to read books. And the reason for that, as well as the decline we mentioned earlier on, well, you're probably staring at it right now. Your smartphone and the addictive stream of 24-hour news, TikTok, YouTube, Netflix, you name it, are mainly to blame. Reading requires a focused, constant stream of attention. But social media and scrolling, well, there's a reason why you can lay in bed, munching on a bag of chips in your pajamas, and do it for hours. It's not hard or challenging. You're getting spoon fed, or depending on the app you use, waterboarded with information. When you're young, you're even more susceptible. Among US teens aged 13 to 17, 73% of them go on YouTube daily, 60% visit TikTok daily, and 50% are on Instagram daily. Within these groups, around 15% say that they're on these apps almost constantly. If we are seeing a slow and gradual decline in reading with adults, there's a potential for a steeper and more consistent decrease in 5 to 10 years if we look at the waning interest in reading of children and teens now. Look, we see overblown news articles all the time. The claim that reading is dying or it's on its last legs has been around and prevalent throughout the years, especially now with the AI and tech boom filling headlines every day. At least from what I've seen, reading is here to stay, and for a long time. In all the ways you could slice and dice the data, the reality is the book industry is constantly churning out books, and people are still buying and reading them, although just a little bit less than they used to. Book reading is less on its way out than just being prioritized less. Interestingly enough, it's been shown that people who pick up books will still consistently spend 75 to 90 minutes reading. So if given the opportunity or the right guidance, people will still read and still have the capacity to sit down and read for quite a long time. There's only so much scrolling you can do before it gets too much and you look for something else. But hopefully in the future, reading becomes more of a priority and less of an afterthought. It's truly an activity that requires you to concentrate, comprehend, and analyze. And that's something we all need a little bit more of, especially now.